Celebrating 41 seasons on the air, Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, a frenzied economy with agriculture at the center of it all. The U.S. and China go head-to-head. With Scott Pruitt out as the head of the EPA, now what? Scientists say our soil is less healthy. And on the lighter side, it's all about curb appeal. All that and more coming up. Farm Week starts right now. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Thanks for joining us today on Farm Week. Leighton Spann is away this week. A lot happening over the last couple of weeks with trade tensions between the U.S. and China commanding the spotlight. The president is taking a tough stance against the second largest economy in the world. He says China exports 5 times what it buys from the United States. The U.S. targeted $34 billion in Chinese products while the Chinese retaliated. Many billions more at stake. If the trade war continues, the Trump administration has threatened levies on 90% of what China exports to the United States. EPA Chief Scott Pruitt resigned suddenly last week. He's been plagued with a number of spending and security scandals and accused of undermining the Renewable Fuel Standard, RFS. His departure should bode well for the Corn Belt. Now, Deputy Chief Andy Wheeler, a former coal lobbyist, steps in for Pruitt with 20 years' experience in D.C. The Guardian reports that U.S. meat workers are 3 times more likely to suffer serious injuries than the average American worker. It says that amputations, fractured fingers, burns, and head trauma are just some of the injuries suffered by U.S. workers every week. Until now, the U.S. government has considered removing speed limits at meat processing plants. Unions say that could lead to even more injuries. And the Cincinnati Enquirer is reporting that soil health is lower now than in years past. It says that on average, the soil contained twice the calcium and more than 5 times the vitamin A it had 70 years ago. The reason? Population growth and food production methods. Both, it says, have stressed the soil, leading to crops that are less healthy. Soil conservation is part of the Farm Bill. The conference committee is working now to blend the House and Senate versions before a vote is scheduled. We'll keep you updated. If you're watching Farm Week, chances are you spent some time on a farm or at least around animals as a kid, maybe 4-H, Junior Cattlemen's Association, any number of programs. This week, though, a herd of kids is getting a rather unique perspective on agriculture through a week-long day camp designed to give them a very hands-on look at everything from tractors to trees and just about everything in between. Kids from all around the region have come here to Mississippi State University in Starkville for the experience. It's called iFarm, and here to tell us all about it is Farm Week's Amy Myers. Amy?
Thanks, Mike. You hit the nail on the head. This truly is a unique experience for these kids. The camp started a couple days ago. Already they've gotten their feet wet and their hands dirty as they explore the wide world of agriculture. And with me, along with the students, is Julie White from the Mississippi State School of Human Sciences. She's the one who came up with the idea for the iFarm camp. Julie, why create this kind of camp experience?
I created this experience for these kids so that they can experience agriculture hands-on and really see what we get into as farmers, but also to give them a chance to look at careers that they might be able to explore for later in life. And it also gives them a chance to see the College of Agriculture here at Mississippi State.
Okay, so let's see what one of the campers has to say. What's your name?
McCarty Overby.
So tell me, have you had a good week so far?
Yes, ma'am.
What have you gotten to see and do?
I've got to go to the poultry farm, to the dairy farm, and to the vet school.
And what's your favorite activity so far?
My favorite activity was using liquid nitrogen to make dipping dots.
Okay, and that has to do with agriculture, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so that's the latest in agriculture education. These kids getting a bird's eye view of what it's like to be a farmer. Farm life. The next generation? We'll find out. Mike?
Thank you, Amy. Everyone knows that it is good to be in shape, but not everybody agrees on the best way to shake it loose. In this Encore Food Factor, here's Natasha Haynes with some fitness tips and a little outside help.
Here on the Food Factor, we are serious about healthy eating, but we're also serious about something that goes hand in hand with good nutrition, and that's exercise. On today's Food Factor fitness tip, we join Dr. Brent Fountain.
Hey, thanks, Natasha. You're right, the two do go hand in hand. Unfortunately, just as people fail to maintain a healthy eating regimen, the same can happen to well-intentioned goals for routine exercise. So here are some tips to help you stay the course. The most important exercise in your quest to be healthy needs to be an activity that you enjoy doing. This can be a traditional exercise or something as simple as working in the garden every day or enjoying outdoor activities with friends and family. One of the main reasons workout plans fail is that people have a preconceived notion of what exercise should be. This often involves special equipment at a gym or jogging every day. And while both of those are good forms of exercise if you enjoy them, they aren't great if there's something you dread. Another important factor is to plan out your exercise schedule ahead of time and be consistent with it. Nothing helps a person stay on track better than a plan and a goal. And remember, adults need 150 minutes of moderate physical activity each week, so find what you enjoy and stay active.
Thanks, Brent, for those helpful tips. And remember, it's time to make healthy food and fitness a factor in your life.
Keeping your garden fit is a good idea too, and it gives you a little curb appeal. Here's Gary Bachman with what a gardener friend of his has done to make her house stand out.
I've always liked the look of white picket fences in the yard. Let's take a look at how my friend Barbara has used her picket fence to show off her front garden. It's pretty easy to see how fantastic the front garden bed is in front of the white picket fence. These orange sun pations can't be beat for easy care and nonstop color. Aside from consistent watering, they're virtually maintenance-free. With our warm night temperatures, they grow strongly, so step back and enjoy. Cuban gold Duranta is a pleasant sight where its sunny, bright colors are always welcome. I think it's easy to see why it's sometimes called the golden boxwood. Peeking out are the 3 to 4 inch flowers of Goldsturm rudbeckia with deep yellow rays and dark brownish black center cones. They're perfect for our hot and humid summers and have some drought tolerance. I love the tropical look of these majestic palms growing in the large concrete urns. These robust plants with their graceful feather-like fronds are right at home on either side of the front gate. Sprawling under the palms are perky multicolored calibrachoa. Anchoring the corner is the 6-foot-tall Bengal tiger canna with its brilliant orange blooms. The foliage is deep green with spectacular yellow stripes. Bengal tiger is certainly a traffic stopper on Jackson Street. Be creative and combine different plants for a sensational landscape. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Gardening.
Gary says there are plenty of amazing plants that will draw positive attention to your home. And if you need even more ideas, just Google Curb Appeal Landscape. Our market roundup is straight ahead. A lot of new construction going on in some areas. That's good for the forest products industry. So much so that there's even a shortage of lumber we'll tell you about. Mississippi's chicken business could be in the bullseye as the trade war cranks up. Some traders wonder if the soybean industry will really be losing that much export business now. And the bright spot, the cattle business continues to shine. The dust is beginning to settle from the latest round of Chinese tariffs that went into effect, as we said at the open of the show. At this point, there's still much unknown about the full impact of China's action on our economy. Mississippi's #1 ag commodity, poultry, may definitely be at risk. The heart of chicken production is right in the center of the state. An analysis by the Brookings Institution shows that 41% of the jobs in Scott County, for example, could be affected in the event of a downturn in the poultry industry due to tariffs. American soybeans are among the products particularly affected from the get-go by this round of tariffs, at least on paper. But many analysts are asking, are we really going to be losing bean trade? Here's one economist's thoughts.
You know, I think you have to ask yourself, are we going to really lose overall world trade? Or are we going to see the trade just shift around? Is China really going to buy less beans for their people? Probably not. So I think what you're really going to find is that maybe we don't sell directly to China, but maybe Brazil buys from us and they sell to China. And by the way, we've seen Brazil and Argentina both be aggressive buyers from the U.S. this year.
Serious traders spent the days leading up to the 4th of July digesting the new grain stocks and acreage numbers from the USDA. Naomi Bloom says the acreage figures were right in line with pre-report estimates. As for the stocks report, she's just glad commodity prices didn't lose any ground when the numbers were released.
Wheat acres were up about 500,000 acres from the March estimate. Soybeans also up just over 500,000 acres from the March estimate. And corn acres up 1 million from the March estimates. But all of these things were expected. The corn number a little bit larger than what people were looking for, but within the range of expectations. So because there was not any big surprise, the market was able to find some short-term footing and at least not plunge any lower.
With the 4th of July holiday, a lot of hamburgers grilled during the month, and that brings us to our trivia quiz for the week. What year did hamburger consumption peak in the United States? Is the answer A, 2006, B, 2013, C, 2015, or D, 2017? We'll have the answer coming up. We'll take a short break, but coming up on our Farm Week feature, everybody knows there can sometimes be a bit of tension between beekeepers and farmers. Of course, bees are a critical part of the ecosystem and essential to agriculture, but the chemicals that farmers use on their crops can get in the way of the good work those bees do and even kill them. So, how to solve that problem? Get people on both sides of the issue talking more openly. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
They say this is the information age, where people can instantly find any answers they're looking for. Yet, so many of us still can't figure out how to feel better. Well, here's a suggestion: eat better. And what better place than a Mississippi farmers market to help you do just that? Locally grown fruits and vegetables are healthy, picked at the peak of quality and freshness to help you feel better.
Before we get to the market report, let's take a look at the Farm Week calendar. First, on Tuesday, July 17th, a cover crop field day at Big River Farms in Clarksdale. Growers who planted cover crops for the first time last year will share their experiences with other producers. There, you'll learn about cover crop selection, soil changes during the first year, and hear what those first timers experienced during the process. Registration is free, lunch is provided, so an RSVP would be appreciated. For more information, call Beth Baker at 662-552-8781. Next, also on July 17th, a forage field day at the Henry LeVeque Research Farm at Mississippi State. Topics include fertility, economics, grazing systems, alfalfa production, and weed and insect control. Many experts will be on hand, and participants will get a chance to look over MSU's forage test plots and production system. To register or for information, call Kathy Johnson at 662-325-2701. No charge, but registration is required for meal planning. Now, check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot. It's been decades since it last happened, but there are signs of a lumber shortage, which could be good for Mississippi's timber and forest products industries. The National Association of Home Builders says more than 30% of contractors in the U.S. are reporting a shortage of framing lumber now due to current building activity. The association says this hasn't happened since 1994, 24 years ago. It's being called a tricky time to figure out how many cattle are going to feedlots in the U.S. Most traders were expecting the number to decline in the latest report, but Extension's Josh Maples says that just didn't happen.
This was basically flat with the same time period of 2017. However, flat was a little unexpected. Pre-report expectations were calling for about a 4% decline relative to a year ago.
And why did that not happen? Why were they expecting a decline and it didn't really happen?
Sure. So placements have been tricky to estimate this year, given the growing supplies, and we've had some grazing condition issues this year. So that basically flat number was within the range of expectations, but it was on the far upper end of that range. And it seems like grazing conditions continue to have a little bit of an impact. So we look at this report, we saw a nearly 10% increase in the number of cattle that were placed that weighed less than 700 pounds. So that would suggest some cattle that came off of grazing probably a little earlier than we might have expected them to. And I think that's playing a part into this difference in report versus expectations.
Now, for those that don't know, what does the term placements refer to?
So placements are cattle that enter into feedlots in a given month. So, and then the other end of that is marketing. So marketings are the cattle that leave a feedlot during a given month.
And speaking of marketings, what did that figure, the marketings figure, look like in this latest report?
Marketings were very well anticipated, up about 5.4% over May of 2017. That's about 100,000 head, a little bit more than 100,000 head more cattle that left feedlots or were sold out of feedlots this past May than during 2017. This continues to be a bright spot for the industry. You know, we know we've got these larger supplies. This marketing rate has to continue to be strong.
Back to the trivia quiz now as we wrap things up in the markets. What year did hamburger consumption peak in the United States? The answer is B, 2013. Meetingplace.com reports 68% of consumers ate a burger at least once a week that year.
Honeybees are important to agriculture, but pesticides from nearby farms can cause them harm and minimize their effectiveness. That's why Mississippi State Extension initiated a partnered plan to foster better communication between row crop farmers and beekeepers. The result is a program that's drawing national attention. Honeybees play a vital role in our daily lives, but we often take bees for granted. Agricultural crops rely heavily on bees to pollinate the fields where our food and fiber are grown. Likewise, row crops serve as a food source for honeybees, so beekeepers often place their hives near crop fields. However, Mississippi State Research and Extension entomologist Jeff Gore says sometimes bees can be inadvertently affected by pesticides that farmers use for controlling other types of insects that are harmful in row crops.
It's important to note that in Mississippi, and really all of the Mid-South, we rely heavily on insecticides to produce crops. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we started having a lot of issues on a national and even international basis about the impacts of insecticides on managed pollinators, in particular honeybees. And so it's been very, very important to get all of these groups that are involved in both row crop agriculture and in beekeeping together at the table to talk about what those national and international problems have been, identify what problems we're having in Mississippi, and try to address some things that both farmers and beekeepers can do collaboratively.
Various stakeholders in Mississippi are taking action in several ways. For example, the Mississippi Honeybee Stewardship Program was formed. It outlines a set of standards for beekeepers, farmers, and professionals from both industries to follow. Included are steps like exchanging basic information between farmers and beekeepers, recognizing bee-aware flags placed near hives, and discussing hive placement before a beekeeper sets up on a farmer's property. Beekeepers are also encouraged to provide GPS coordinates to farmers, and farmers should notify ground and aerial pesticide applicators of all beehive placements. Mississippi State University Extension helps educate all stakeholders about insect disease control, beehive management, and other related topics through various publications, meetings, conferences, and workshops. These combined efforts in Mississippi caught the attention of the Entomological Society of America, as As a result, the Insect Ecosystems Science Policy Field Tour was created, which brought stakeholders nationwide to Mississippi.
Entomological Society of America is the national organization of professional entomologists. There's nearly 7,000 of us. Within that, about 2,500 of us focus on an area called plant insect ecosystems, and that involves everything from insects and natural ecosystems to crop protection to, of course, pollinators. Now, here recently, within the last year or so, our section determined that pollinator health would be a technical issue at which we would focus our efforts on. And what we wanted to do was build awareness both within our section and with the public on pollinator health.
As a logical next step to ESA plant insect ecosystem section's focus on pollinators, we wanted to bring people down to Mississippi to see an example of one of the first programs that brought together beekeepers and growers. And so we were able to talk with people and invite them down to see the honeybee stewardship program here firsthand and understand how communication between different groups was able to facilitate some of the positive interactions. In addition, Entomological Society of America members from Mississippi State University were key in making this program a reality.
In addition, there's another approach to protecting honeybees. Jane DeMarchi with American Seed Trade Association says it involves using a wider variety of seed selection.
From our perspective, ASTA is a broad-based membership organization. We have seed companies that are in different crops and environment and conservation seed. So we're looking particularly in the pollinator space about how we can protect pollinators around areas that are using seed treatment and how we can also improve pollinator habitat using different types of wildflower and other kinds of seed.
One of the biggest take-home messages is that challenges with insects and pest management will vary between different regions of the country. For example, Mississippi growers face much more pressure to control insects since the insect population is much higher compared to other parts of the U.S.
In particular, we tend to have much heavier insect pressure in all of the crops that we grow. We tend to rely more heavily on foliar insecticide sprays to manage insect pests in all of the crops.
And interacting with my colleagues from Mississippi State, you know, I started hearing about the great progress that they've made in bringing the farmers and the honey producers or beekeepers together to talk about these issues of bee health. And that was kind of my main reason for participating here. My initial gut reaction is, you know, if you guys can find this coexistence between the beekeepers and growers under this very intensive input-heavy production, you know, I think we have to be able to do it too, right? Because our production isn't as intensive, there aren't as many insecticide applications.
One of the stops during the field policy tour included Provine helicopters in the Mississippi Delta. Participants watched a field aerial application and experienced hands-on learning about innovative technology used to enable a safe aerial pest management application. During an in-field session, the group learned about integrated pest management programs as well as economically important insect pests in Mississippi crops. Discussions with researchers, agricultural consultants, and growers also took place. Participants also visited a native pollinator conservation site, followed by a trip to the demonstration research plots at Mississippi State University's Delta Research and Extension Center in Stoneville. Beekeeper Johnny Thompson says maintaining ongoing collaboration with row crop farmers has worked well in his business.
When you've got thousands of acres of soybeans blooming, we can put our hives out there and they can make a really good honey crop. We have it worked out where, you know, we realize the farmers have to spray their crops to protect them, so we try to keep our bees in areas away from direct exposure to the pesticides that they may be spraying so that they can, you know, protect their crops and we can still make our honey crop. If you get a direct spray in, you're going to find, you know, hives full of dead bees. You know, we never see that. You know, there is a possibility that when the bees are flying across a field from from our hives to another field, they could get sprayed, but you know, so far we haven't had any issues.
As new beekeepers enter the business, Extension entomologist Jeff Harris says efforts must be made to continue the communication and keep row crop growers and beekeepers on the same page.
It's an ongoing thing. It never ends. This isn't over. We're going to have to deal with things and modify things, and new issues are going to crop up. We have to keep the dialogue going because beekeepers are always going to bring their bees to the Delta for soybean honey, cotton honey, and farmers are always going to use pesticides to control their pests. So there's always going to be this tension. The pesticides change, but there's always going to be this tension.
Amidst varying opinions on the issue, all stakeholders agree with one fact. Our survival depends on pollinating insects. We may never see a complete end to the debates regarding pollinators and pest management. However, working toward cooperation for the greater good is a step in the right direction.
Good to see folks on both sides of the issue actually talking things out.
Yes, clearly everyone has something at stake here, so yes, it's great that they're communicating so fluidly.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Well, next week with football right around the corner, we've got a story that will have you on the edge of your stadium seat. Obviously, our favorite teams are going head-to-head, but what about that gridiron? A lot of work goes into maintaining that gorgeous turf we see on weekends.
Of course, that grass is just a little different than what's on your front yard. How different? We'll take a peek before we light the candle on all that football fever. That's next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, you can find past episodes of Farm Week on our website, msuext.ms/farmweek.
And as always, don't forget to follow us and video clips from the show on Facebook and Twitter as well.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.